Starfield has a piracy problem. And I don't mean that there's too much piracy going on. What I mean is that there isn't enough piracy going on. The Crimson Fleet exists, you know, it's a faction, it's cool, but it's missing a couple things. So why don't we change that today? My name is Mad Rats, and on today's episode we'll be completely overhauling the fabled Crimson Fleet to make him the menace that the settled system doesn't need and doesn't deserve, but has to deal with anyways. We'll start with the smallest, least intrusive mods, and slowly work our way up. Not that there are that many mods for the Crimson Fleet, but there are some pretty neat ones. With that said, let's get started. First off, have you ever noticed just how crimson the Crimson Fleet is? I mean, don't get me wrong, I expect a faction named the Crimson Fleet to have a little bit of red on them. But in the vanilla game, it's a little over the top. An absurd amount of red for anyone to be wearing, in any context, at any point in time in the settled systems. So, let's fix that. Immersive Pirate Gear Redone by Foxtech will do exactly what I'm talking about. This mod doesn't completely remove all of the red from the Crimson Fleet's arsenal, although there are mods for that if you want them. But this mod instead just reduces the amount of red and keeps it in the places that seem like it would make the most sense, adding some notes of brown and black in their wake instead. I think this might have become a mainstay in my load order, honestly. There's no ESP plugin, no ESM plugin. It will not take up a slot in your load order, it's just textures. And it leaves just enough red that the fleet still gets to keep its name, but isn't overbearing. As a small little addition to that, I have a little mod that reminded me of one of my favorite childhood games. Here's Crimson Fleet Helmet Blacked Out Visor Replacer by Bonepunk, which replaces the decal on one of the fleet's helmets with the skull from Emil's visor from Halo Reach. The eye sockets don't quite line up with the pirate's eyes under the helmet, but be honest, you're too busy looking like a badass to care that much. Now for another pretty cool mod, we have Crimson Fleet inspired HUD by, I really should have tried to read this out loud before I started recording. I'm just gonna say CWWDWW. Try saying that 5 times fast. I dare ya. Anyways, this neat little mod just overhauls the main heads-up display. You add some more red highlights, replaces the planet icon on the chrono watch with the Crimson Fleet's skull, a couple of tiny cool little details. It's important to note that with my current mod list, using this mod did stop me from being able to use the activate key at all, so maybe user beware about that. I don't know if that's a mod incompatibility or if maybe one of the many updates that we've gotten for Starfield since the mod first released might have broken something, but I thought it was a cool mod anyways and very much felt like it was worth a shout. If you've ever visited the Last Nova, the pirate bar on board the Crimson Fleet station, you'll notice it's pretty loud in there. But then you step outside and, well, dead silence. Let's fix that. The music is loud enough that you ought to be able to hear it from anywhere on the station. But now, at the very least, you can hear it from just outside the door, using Louder Last Nova by David. It might be a small change, but it fits. It makes perfect sense, so we're keeping it. Here's another small but helpful one. Although technically this one is for those of you working against the Crimson Fleet, not for it. Here's Renamed Crimson Fleet Evidence, Better Sort by one of my all-time favorite modders, Eleonora. This mod simply renames all the evidence files that you can acquire throughout the Crimson Fleet questline to turn into sysdef, so that the word evidence comes first. This is useful if you have a million notes in your inventory and want to sort through and find the evidence ones pretty quickly. Next up we have X2357's Faction Weapon Skins, Crimson Fleet. by the same name. I'm not saying that twice. That's a mouthful. This mod does exactly what it says. Adds new weapon skins themed around the Crimson Fleet for some shiny, sleek red goodness. About 48 new weapons have been given a Crimson on fleek. God, that joke was terrible. But since I mostly run around with the Equinox, that's the one I was the most excited for. Going up next, we have the Crimson Gang van standalone by Satao? One of those, I think, hopefully. Sato? Maybe Sato. That one sounds like it makes the most sense. This cool new pirate mystery machine is available to equip after you've purchased the Rev 8 from your local ship vendor. This bad boy is pretty fun to drive. Honestly, what's not to love? You know, it's got wheels, boosts, it can jump, it does all the things that a car is supposed to do, but it also looks cooler, and has a lot of personal details added onto it that I just can't help but appreciate. The mounted weapon shoots a blue laser, which is a nice contrast to the deep red of the vehicle itself, and it does a pretty decent amount of damage when you hit your shots, which I can't, as you can see. Moving from the rugged terrain of Jemison into the field of stars, we have Crimson Fleet Rearmed by Flight Controller, which adds 17 new parts to the shipbuilder that all have a Crimson Fleet aesthetic. You've got guns, there's a landing pad, there's a cockpit, a couple of habs, a couple of other goodies too. The connections on these parts are kind of strange, and they don't particularly agree with my mod list. There aren't any patches for popular mods like Useful Brigs or Place Your Own Doors, but if you're on a mostly vanilla mod list, this ought to be pretty useful for you, and it might be worth trying out. Alright, we've changed the way our weapons and armor look, and now we've found brand new ways to traverse both land and sea. Sea of Stars, of course. We've made our super secret objective of betraying the Crimson Fleet that much more organized, and a couple of other cool new details, but what now? Now we need something to wear once the job is done, and we're ready to retire back to our bunk on board the Key. This is a three-parter. It won't just add new outfits, it'll also distribute them throughout the fleet. This is Crimson X by Zone 79. Which adds 10 new outfits and 26 new accessories, all themed around the Crimson Fleet. And with this next mod, Crimson X Distributed by Chosty? I need to start doing this before I record. We can find these outfits on the fleet troopers deployed throughout the stars. But there is one slight caveat with that, flying the lotion. The Crimson Fleet's troops still wear their spacesuits wherever you go that isn't the Key. And even on the Key, most of the time, if they're not a named NPC, they're wearing spacesuits. Which means that even when we do distribute Crimson X outfits throughout the leveled lists, we still won't see them in action, unless we take them and put them on ourselves. For that reason, we're going to install Remove Crimson Fleet Spacesuits in Breathable Conditions by GTA Man 9. Now we can see that some of the troops have their armor and others just have an outfit and some dressings. I took the liberty of putting my own gear on. If you see any visual discrepancies in this video, it's one of my body mods not particularly playing nice with Crimson X, which is going to be a problem with Starfield until we can get a collectively agreed upon body mod, but that hasn't happened yet, and I have no idea if it will. So for now, it's just something we're going to have to live with. Either way, the Crimson X mod is compatible with the vanilla male and female bodies, as well as Zone's beautiful bodies for women. As an honorable mention before I get into the biggest chunk of our last few mods, which do the most for our new Crimson Fleet themed overhaul, I did want to just shout out Crimson Graffiti Fonts by Real Mr. Kraken. If you like the font that the Crimson Fleet's graffiti is written in, it's now available as a font usable on programs like Microsoft Word or Google Docs or OpenOffice. But I think mostly this could be particularly useful as a modder's resource to anyone out there watching this who wants to make their own Crimson Fleet inspired mods. And you totally should, because that means I can make a part 2 to this. Hint hint, wink wink, nudge nudge. We've done just about everything we can except overhaul the actual experience itself. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of our new Crimson Fleet stew. If you wanted to dedicate a playthrough solely to the Crimson Fleet, then SKK Mod's Crimson Start New Game has you covered. Once you press New Game, instead of going through the usual routine that a Bethesda game puts you through, you'll immediately load onto a Crimson Fleet ship and create your character. You'll start the game with Crimson Fleet equipment, and you will be asked one question. Do you intend to work with SysDef, or will you remain true to the red flag? Your answer will determine whether or not the United Colonies is hostile towards you or not. And after you've made that decision, you're free to board your ship and do what you want. It'll automatically start you off with the second mission of the Crimson Fleet's questline. Unless, of course, you choose not to work with SysDef, in which case it will remove the quest to find evidence. It is the only substantial change. Now that we're a part of the fleet, we need a little more incentive. So, in order to become King of the Pirates, Luffy style, we need to start at the bottom and work our way up. We're going to do just that with Crimson Fleet Ranks by Downfall Nemesis. This mod adds a ranking system within the fleet. You'll level up 6 times by completing missions across the Crimson Fleet mission boards. It's worth noting that the main questline will not affect this ranking system at all, only the mission boards. This is both for compatibility reasons and balancing. As you level up these ranks, you're going to earn gear, discounts, cash, but most importantly 3 unique rewards. You'll earn a new player home aboard the Key, which comes with a cool new laptop that tells you exactly what your rank is. It is not connected in any way to the captain's quarters that you'll earn by finishing the questline and siding with the fleet, so technically by the time you are done with the Crimson Fleet's questline, you'll have 2 rooms on board the Key. You selfish bastard, you. You'll also earn a Class A ship called the Fortified Sparrow, and once you hit the 6th and final rank, a C-Class ship called the Black Pearl will be yours to captain, Jack Sparrow. This will add a sense of replayability to the game and the Crimson Fleet questline that you otherwise wouldn't have. What was that I said about the captain's quarters? I swear I mentioned the captain's quarters a minute ago, which, you know, lucky for us, has gotten a beautiful visual overhaul with The Key, Captain's Quarters Furnished, by the same author who made the previous mod, Downfall Nemesis. You know, I just went and checked their profile while I was editing this video, and I don't think I realized how many of the mods that I have installed were made by Nemesis. This dude is hard carrying the Starfield modding scene right now. Shout out to you, Nemesis, you're awesome. Anyways, Nemesis's take on the captain's quarters is better than anything I think I could have done myself using the decoration menu. You know, it's got everything a growing scallywag needs, from weapon displays to a place to plan the next big score, all the way down to a place to run Skyrim Anniversary Edition with over 2,000 mods installed. It struck me as odd that your reward for completing the entire faction's questline was an empty room. I'm glad there was a mod to circumvent that issue, you know? And that about covers it. Every substantial mod that I could find that enhances the quality of a Crimson Fleet playthrough. Except, I can't help but feel like something is missing here. I mean, we've changed the way our gear looks, we've given ourselves new gear, we've upgraded our ships, we've started our game within the ranks of our fabled pirate faction. We even improved upon the place that we earn as a reward for completing said faction's questline, but... well, I did have one more card up my sleeve. The wild card. The wild card.
I'm not about to let a payday slip through my fingers.
I want you to head straight for Bannock 4 and bring Crixus' legacy home. And before you get any bright ideas, only a genius like Shinya would be able to crack that encryption. So bring it back.
All that money staring me right in the face, and it's completely worthless. This is a nightmare. Worst kind of prison imaginable.
Congratulations. You've officially acquired Crix's legacy, and now you have two choices. Deliver your prize unto the Crimson Fleet and earn your place as the greatest pirate who ever sailed the Black Sea, or uphold the tenets of duty and honor and bring justice at the hands of Sistef. Doesn't that all seem a little black and white? You're either good or bad, there is no in between. But that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't we just keep the money for ourselves? After all, it is a pirate's life for me. And Mathis sure did seem to imply that there would be some kind of way to keep things for yourself. Legacy's End Wildcard by Flipping Eggs does just that. Not only adds in one extra choice, but one extra choice that branches out into several, with some extra consequences at the end. This mod reuses vanilla assets, and allows you to keep Crix's legacy all for yourself, as any true NASA punk swashbuckler should. If I'm gonna be honest, this mod is genuinely insane. Like, it's so well baked into the base game that you wouldn't even really know it's a mod if I didn't tell you. That's how high quality this mod is. Once you've acquired the data slate, with all of the encrypted credits on it from the legacy, you have a third option, to take it to Neon and find somebody who can help you decrypt it for yourself. With both Sistef and the Crimson Fleet hunting after you, trying to take it back in a last desperate scramble for power. I went into this mod expecting it to be a neat little 5-minute quest, you know, go here, read this note, fast travel to this place, you know, insert slate, you're done. But genuinely, it feels like an entire new quest line. You know, it takes advantage of vanilla assets in such an interesting way. It integrates things so seamlessly in. The voice actors for the quest's main NPC was incredibly high quality, both in terms of the quality of the voice acting and the quality of the sound itself.
We have an office location here in Neon. Our first step will be to head over there.
And depending on what you choose to do, you may find yourself on the opposing end of the barrel of a gun of quite a few familiar faces, which did genuinely have me rethinking some of my life choices throughout playing this questline. I had to kill quite a few people I care about, but honestly, it's a lot easier to cry in a Stroud Eklund premium cruiser than it is to do so in the same beaten up Crimson Ghost we've had since the start of the video. Not only does this mod introduce a third way to end the questline, but there's so many branched out pathways at the end, so many things that you can do with the money that you have. It's really impressive, and I cannot believe I was lucky enough to stumble across this. Flippin' Eggs did the Lord's work with this video. With this mod, I can't recommend it enough. But with that said, that's every worthwhile mod I could find to improve your experience traveling with the Crimson Fleet. You know, I've wanted to make this video since like November of 2023, and I can't believe I actually managed to pull it off here. You know, I'm glad that I waited so long because, you know, Wildcard is a really new mod, and you know, if I'd just done it back then, like 2 of these mods would have existed. It wouldn't have been nearly as awesome. You know, I want to give a special thank you to the hardworking team members over at Bethesda who made this game, and you know, in even more personal thank you to the dedicated mod authors whose work allowed me to make this video in the first place. You know, I wouldn't be able to do what I do if those 2 hardworking communities didn't do what they did. But I'd also like to thank you for watching this video. You know, I put a lot of passion into this. It took me about 3 days to make this video. It doesn't look like much, but 3 days is kind of a long time, you know, and it means a lot that you know, even if it's just one person, someone took the time out of their day to sit down and watch this, you know. And with that said, that's all I've got. You know, I'm gonna leave it here. I will see you guys the next one. You know, I love you all. Cheers.